Simone, Jeff Creary, and Jared Lohman. They're going to present to you the findings that they have come up with and the conclusions in some way that they have also come up with about our plans, and hopefully you will all love them. But if you have any questions or comments, I will be circulating around and having you ask your questions, and I won't be answering them.
Yeah, but he now is it okay? No, but they're recording this, I guess, for play at home for insomniacs. Anyway, thanks for your time tonight. We can be very informal since we have a small group. As Cheryl said, this is our third meeting. In addition to Cheryl, on the committee, Beverly Barnes is here, Carolyn Wallace, and Susan Byrne are here on our committee. So thanks to them for all their hard work over the last several months. Putting this plan together. We're at the draft plan stage. We also are working with traffic planning and design is on our team who are traffic engineers. And you may have picked up an agenda and hopefully you've signed in. We're going to go through this agenda tonight with you to review where we are in the process. And we are, as this graphic shows, at our third public meeting. This starts the 45-day public review of the draft plan in a few days, probably 2 to 3 days, hopefully. What's today, Tuesday? Hopefully by Friday or certainly by Monday, the draft plan should be up on the website. So you'll be able to go to the website and review it in detail, and we would welcome your written comments on that draft plan if you so care to do that. That's a great help to us. This is the third public meeting. We've had 8 of 11 committee meetings so far. We've had 3 focus groups. We are going to the Board of Commissioners on the 23rd. That was just confirmed today. So we're going to be presenting this to the commissioners and asking them to also review this draft plan when they can. I think I've seen most of the faces here. I think everyone's been at a previous meeting. Yeah, Cheryl, did you have a question? Great, yeah, thank you. The commissioners' meeting on the 23rd will only be about this plan. The commissioners have been kind enough to schedule that meeting. They were not necessarily going to have the meeting, but based on the request from the committee, they are going to have the meeting, so we'll have time to talk about this in detail with the commissioners, which is great. At the first public meeting, it was before we got into any planning. We did a lot of brainstorming. We asked folks some of the things that were important to them. Those meeting minutes are on the website if you care to look at those. We came up with goals for the projects, existing conditions, and concepts. Then we went back to work and started to come up with preliminary trail and greenway recommendations at the second public meeting, which was in April. In between these public meetings, of course, we've had these 8 committee meetings and the 3 focus groups. And so our major scope, and I'll review this briefly, is to develop mainly the Greenway and Trail Network, to look for regional connections, certainly, to make recommendations about management of this Greenway and some of the acquisition of open space processes. How do we implement this, and where do we look for money for this? Because you'll see there's a sizable price tag, but again, this is probably a 20-year plus plan. This is not going to be done overnight. It's going to take some time. The minor scope items you can see there, reviewing criteria for acquiring open space, looking at how stormwater management dovetails with this, seeing how we connect to historic and cultural aspects, and also seeing how the shade tree commissions work and dovetail with the plan. And again, this is a plan that is mainly tailored to advanced cyclists and basic cyclists. It's not a route that most of the routes you'll see are on road because of the nature of Radnor, which is highly developed. It has old, historic, windy roads, some places narrow. You'll see, have some off-road trail connections that as a cyclist or a walker or a jogger, you won't have to worry about automobiles, but they're relatively limited based upon the opportunities that we saw. And so You know, the advanced cyclists will be comfortable anywhere. The basic cyclists, depending on their comfort with traffic, will be comfortable on either on-road in some instances or certainly off-road. And then the child cyclists will be primarily going to be, you know, younger kids who will only be comfortable on off-road trails, either existing or those that we can recommend. And pathways also have different classifications. Again, the Cadillac, if I could say that, of trails is the Class 1. It's totally separated from a vehicular cartway, whereas a user, you don't have to worry about cars. And that is really what the Radnor Trail is that you're familiar with. Class 2 are designated bike lanes within a roadway for the use of the cyclist. They might have special pavement or markings. Typically, a bike lane has to be a minimum of 5 feet wide. Sometimes there's separation between the vehicular cartway and the bike lane. And then Class 3 are bike routes that are typically widened shoulders, at least 3 feet wide, hopefully a little wider, with some signage. And this is really sort of the share the road, or the new PennDOT designation is use the full lane, which is the new sign that you'll start seeing in the area, as opposed to just share the road. So this Class 3 bike routes are a lot of what we've recommended as we go through this. Radnor is in a very good position regionally to take advantage of what's called the circuit. The circuit is a regional sort of superhighway system of trails that's been designated by the DVRPC, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And also, it's one of the priorities of the William Penn Foundation to fund this. Over the next, hopefully, decade or so, both these organizations are going to be focusing on helping to connect this circuit system. Radnor, the regional trail that you see sort of going through the center of Radnor here is part of that circuit. So that's good news. So that's going to help the township get funding to complete that part of the system that's a circuit. I'll mention that concurrent to this study, there's another study happening which is called the the Forge to Refuge Preserve. This is a regional trail study that looks at connecting Valley Forge with the John Hines Preserve down near the airport. That process is going forward right now. It's also funded by DCNR, and we're sharing information between our two studies. So that's good news. Because Radnor's going to have the advantage of having two studies done on trails, with one informing the other and vice versa. We looked at the existing resources. We looked at Radnor's Great Park System, the school district parcels, the other many institutional schools, universities that you have, existing golf courses. We also looked at homeowners association lands. We're not proposing trails on homeowners associations lands, which are in effect private open space, but we want homeowners associations to be able to approach the township in the future if they want to connect to this trail system. Excuse me. There's also some conservation easements in the township. And there are also a number of major commercial retail destinations and certainly employment centers that the township could take advantage of. Excuse me. So now we're going to go through our draft trail system. It's a draft because we fully expect we'll make changes to this plan moving forward, and thanks. Make changes to this plan moving forward, and that's why your comments are going to be important. This is an overall map, and I think there's a copy of it over on the side of the room. And we've broken down the proposed trails into walking and hiking, multi-use, on-road bike. And then also, in the draft plan, we've designated a priority system, which you can see bolded here, which we're saying these are our suggested priorities moving forward as the township implements this over a period of years. And we're going to quickly go through the major pieces of this There's certainly a lot more detail, and I could be up here for a long time and you'd be all very bored. But when you have time to read it, that's when you can really get into some of the detail about all these different sections. The first section is segment number 8 in the plan, the West Wayne Ave, Conestoga Road segment. It's number 8. Thanks, Jeff. And we've actually had a couple of meetings with some of the neighbors in this neighborhood to go through this, made some changes. And the purpose of this section is to connect downtown Wayne to the existing Radnor Trail, which we think is a high priority connection. We take the trail, as you can see, from the Wayne Business District down West Wayne Ave. And along this first section of West Wayne, we're suggesting a bikeway where there's an existing sidewalk. It's a one-way street, and so we want to have two-way bike traffic here. So we're suggesting basically taking the existing walkway you'll see on the I think it's the south side of the West Wayne, and enlarging that to a bikeway for a block or so that we can have a multi-use trail that's not in traffic, that can get bikes both ways to a point that you'll see. And that section shows that. So going left to right, you see the bikeway, you see a separator, you see the travel lane, and then you see the parking lane. For this section, we would relocate the parking from the south side to the north side of the street. We would lose about 10 to 12 parking spaces. This is the only place that we're aware of any of the recommendations where we would have a net loss of parking spaces. But we think this connection is important enough to consider that. As we go further down Wayne, we would continue bike traffic as a lot of bikers use it now, down West Wayne from right to left on the slide to connect to the Radnor Trail. However, pedestrians, we would suggest going on an existing and a proposed new sidewalk that goes around the corner to Conestoga, and making a right-hand turn if you're going west here, going up Conestoga to where Lenore Avenue is, and then creating a crosswalk at Lenore Ave into the West Wayne Preserve. Would have to build a boardwalk through a wet section of this, but this is a little flag that it's always been there in West Wayne. We assume it was purchased by the township because they wanted an access there at some point, and this would take you through the park as a pedestrian to the Radnor Trail. And we'll just have a couple of shots of that. This is up near the post office, where the multi-purpose trail would be on the south side, travel lane in the middle, and then the parking is on the right or the north side. And then as we get to Conestoga, pedestrians would direct them to the right up Conestoga, and bikes would continue straight. And then when we get to Lenore Ave as pedestrian, we'd suggest a crossing there. We did have a meeting with PennDOT to review some of these draft recommendations. They were very, very helpful and very receptive and very interested in the plan. And we have suggested in the draft plan just a flashing pedestrian light there to warn drivers that this would be a pedestrian crossing, and get into West Wayne Preserve and into the trail in this direction. So this is, you'll see in a minute, this is our #1 priority we're suggesting for the township to pursue, because, again, it'd be great to be able to connect downtown Wayne to the Radnor Trail. The next section is a short segment on South Radnor Chester Road, and it's simply to widen the sidewalk on, I guess it's the east side of the road, to make a better connection to the Radnor Trail that already exists. Very modest improvement, but one that we think will be important and helpful to get people to this trail more safely. Along Lancaster Ave and King of Prussia Road, we've got a few segments here, and we've got some different illustrations to show you where they're going. On Lancaster Ave, along Radnor High School, we would propose to have a multi-purpose trail separated from traffic on the north side of Lancaster Ave. There's certainly enough school district property there that doesn't negatively impact anybody, where you could have that trail connecting along Lancaster, continuing down towards the Radnor train station, the regional rail station. So the multi-use trail here would be on the east side. And then you can see the connections through that are proposed through and along the various properties under, going from right to left, underneath the railroad underpass along Lancaster Ave, which we'll see in a minute, and then sort of continuing sort of right and north through the Chew track underneath an existing underpass under the Blue Route up to the Radnor station, and then continuing to the left again under an existing underpass, and getting that over to Radnor, King of Prussia Road, as you go up towards the high school. So connecting some very important points with an off-road section. And again, this would be a new off-road section that you wouldn't have to deal, for the most part, with cars. This is where the trail would use an existing sidewalk underneath the railroad underpass along Lancaster Avenue. We went over this with PennDOT. There really aren't a lot of options here in terms of getting people under. This would be a situation where you have a sign that says, for the cyclist, stop and dismount, because there'll be pedestrians and cycles using this. You know, if it's clear, most cyclists won't stop and dismount. They'll just coast under here. But this is really the only feasible way to get through this obstruction, you know, without boring a tunnel, which would be, you know, prohibitively expensive. So this seems to make the most sense. And then you can see these other connections continuing up to past the Chew track and then up through the Young track, and then all the way up to County Line Station. And then also we've got a pedestrian bridge suggested. I think it's the only major bridge that we propose in the study, connecting Archbishop Carroll with the Young tract over the Scepter right-of-way, and then on to the Radnor Regional Rail Station. So there's some nice sections of off-road trail here that would, I think, really add a nice recreational and fitness dimension to this section of the township. Along Lancaster Ave, we're suggesting to continue east in front of Villanova. There's certainly adequate room to really take an existing sidewalk, make it a multi-use path. Villanova attended one of our focus groups. They seem very receptive to the idea of being included in the trail system, which would certainly benefit all the students and faculty and staff who go there. And then we'd take that up to Ithan Ave, and then we would cross Route 30 at Ithan. I should mention, again, not all the details in this presentation, as part of Villanova's development agreement for what they're redeveloping at the parking lot along Route 30, our understanding is there's an agreement to provide a new pedestrian bridge over Route 30 at the chapel. That would be from the upper level near the chapel across to the Route 100 station. So the trail could take advantage of that also as it comes along Lancaster to make that important connection to the regional, the high-speed Route 100 line, which is a great thing because connecting trails to regional rail or local rail enhances the ability for a cyclist to extend their trip. And that's one of the other great resources that Radnor has. You have many mass transit stations. So as we get to Route 30, to the right of this slide, to come down Ithan Avenue and a share the road situation mostly. And then when we get to the sort of the dog leg that you saw on the plan, to continue down Ithan looking south, and to include a hiking trail and a share the road situation on the road. It's a very low volume road. The hiking trail would probably be on PennDOT right away. That would have to be negotiated and get approval for that. We don't see any downside to that. So you can have a walking trail separate from a on the road bike area. On the southern section, Bryn Mawr Avenue, segment 22, would be a sort of a share the road situation. We've got existing paving. What's proposed here are 2 11-foot lanes and 3-foot shoulders. And the draft plan, we've done this plan based upon what's called GIS, or Geographic Information Systems mapping, which is fairly accurate, but it's not a survey. So as this plan goes forward and the engineering is done for it, the engineer or the landscape architect will have to determine the exact extent of the right-of-way, where it falls within the cartway. We think generally there will be enough room for this cross-section, which comes out to 22 plus 6 is 28 feet minimum. The other thing that will have to be accounted for is you can see utility poles are in different positions along rights-of-way. You try to avoid those. Sometimes you have to move those. And when you look at our cost estimates, you'll see we have contingencies in there, and that's why there are contingencies, because at this level of planning, you cannot figure all those costs as you look at this. But we've provided for that. So Bryn Mawr Avenue is a popular route right now. There is a program out, which I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but a lot of cyclists use it, and they actually publish maps now that show the relative use of those roads by cyclists, and this is one of the heavily used routes by cyclists now in the township, and so the location of this trail here reflects that. Darby-Paley Road going north-south, and again, a similar situation, where we would have a share the road situation with improved shoulders. And we get to Church and Brook. This is a fairly challenging section, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. We're looking at, again, share the road. There are going to be some areas where there may have to be some small acquisitions, and I'm talking 2, 3, 4 feet of right-of-way to get this in. We see the ability to connect the trail to Chanticleer as a really good opportunity. We looked at doing it on Church, but we thought the better opportunity would be at Brook. Hopefully, if this goes forward, Chanticleer would be amenable to a second entrance on Brook to welcome those folks safely to the facility. So that would have to be something that would be a discussion with them down the road. There's one section where we would have to relocate curbs. There's one section of Brook Road that's curbed. We'd want to relocate curbs to get that width that we need for a minimum 3-foot shoulders and 11-foot lanes as we go through there. And this is right at the Radnor Trail access. One of the things that's sort of pending still is use of the Norristown high-speed right-of-way for a trail connection. And this is something that was brought up by Commissioner Fisher, and we've inquired with SEPTA. We're still waiting for them to respond. This was a proposal that was out there several years ago to use part of the right-of-way. If you're familiar with it, it was originally designed to have 2 tracks. Right now, there's only 1 track. They recently put some high tension towers there for electric. So from our view, when they put the power lines in, it lessens the potential for an additional rail line. So we've got an inquiry to SEPTA whether this is feasible to use. Also, our sister study that I mentioned, the Forge to Preserve Trail, is also looking at this. So this is a potential trail alignment that could work really well. Not only will it connect to some other stations, but it could be a nice north-south route in the southeastern portion of the township that could work really well. So we're gently pushing SEPTA to consider this, and hopefully in the next few weeks they're going to respond in terms of whether it's feasible, and my guess is even regardless of how they respond, it still might go into the plan as a sort of a wish item because it's so attractive from so many different ways. And so we'll see how SEPTA responds to our request for a sort of just a feel about that, an opinion about that. The proposed trail system comes out to about 36 miles, and you can see the totals there for existing trails that you have and new trails. The price tag for the whole system is about $9.5 million. The priority loop is about $5.3 million. So you can see the price tag. If you take that over 20 years, you can do the math probably better than I can. So it's not a small investment, and it may take longer than 20 years, but we think it's something that is important infrastructure for the township, and hopefully this Board of Commissioners and subsequent boards will feel the same way and take a sort of methodical and long-term approach to this to implement this to provide more access for everybody. The priorities that we've suggested, and again, these are all subject to change in the final plan, is you can see the numbering there, and the titles. The first is the Wayne to Radnor Trail, and you can see the cost estimates for those. That's the West Wayne connection. That's a relatively modest price for, I think, an important connection. So we would hope that could move forward relatively quickly. And then we get into some of the off-road trails that we showed you, 2A and 2B. Again, a smaller project at Radnor-Trester Road, which is mostly a sidewalk improvement, the Darby-Paoli section and the Ithan Avenue section. So these are all various, separate projects. They could be broken up further. When you look at the cost estimates, you'll see how they're broken down. In terms of greenways, we looked at your streams and wooded areas and distinguished between those, and really our recommendation, and this is a recommended. We don't see this becoming codified as an ordinance, but we see the township recommending to property owners vegetative management standards to both protect water quality and to enhance it over time. And this would be an educational process where the township would encourage property owners who have land within this 300 feet of either side of these riparian areas and creeks to manage vegetation in a way that is conducive to better water quality, and simple things like not cutting the lawn right down to the creek, because if you let it grow more, it has more filtering capacity to filter out pollutants and sediments, etc. So we think this is a sort of a long-term thing that can help protect the water quality. There's already a riparian buffer ordinance in the township. That would not change, but this is sort of a best management technique to encourage folks to take, for everyone in the township, to take better care of the creeks and streams just through these vegetation management techniques, not planting invasives, certainly trying to focus more on natives and that type of thing, not having a lot of disturbance in that 300 feet. And again, it's not going to be a perfect system, but we think it could be a very good improvement. The draft report, as I mentioned, begins today, the review period. If the township decides you need more than 45 days, that's certainly fine, but we'd like to try to keep this on schedule so the township can move forward. And again, in a few days, the entire report will be up on the township website. A copy of the report also goes to the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, who funded 50% of the study. They will review it. We're going to encourage the County Planning Department to review this study also. Township Engineer Steve Norsini hopefully will review this. So as many eyes as we can get on this, the better, which will produce changes and hopefully a better plan from where it is exactly now. When you get a chance to look at the plan, you'll see there's a sort of a key where we have, I guess, 12 sheets that cover the entire township, and there are larger maps, more detailed maps than the graphic map that's in the room that you see over near the left-hand side of the room. And so each of these goes into detail of what's proposed in that particular area of the township. The report itself, we tried to keep it brief because a ton of words sometimes doesn't help portray what's in the plan, which is on the map. So we've tried to be succinct in how we've described this to everybody, so it won't take a huge amount of time to read. And also the cost estimates are very detailed. You see we've broken the trail sections, and if you go back to the maps, each of these sections is numbered, and it corresponds to the cost estimates. So it's sort of like a Chinese menu. so that 2 or 3 or 10 or 15 years down the road, when the township is using this, you won't have to figure out, okay, where do they get this number? It's broken down into real bite-sized pieces so that it's hopefully very simple to look at the numbers and the lengths and what's included in there, so that as segments get built and get funded, it'll be easy to use. With a $9 million price tag, the obvious question is, well, how do we fund this? And the intention is not to fund it solely with Radnor Township funds. The good news is there are lots of funding sources out there. You're probably aware the transportation bill was just passed, which includes sources for trail funding. We've been involved in at least 2 applications in the last 2 months for an excess of $2 million for 2 different projects. And hopefully those will get funded. They're in different communities. So with this plan in hand, Radnor at the next round can go to various sources. And you can see some of them here. DCNR is a very good one. The TAP program is the one through PennDOT and DVRPC. I mentioned DVRPC and the William Penn Foundation will help fund parts of the circuit, which Radnor happens to be part of, so that's really good news. The Commonwealth Financing Agency, et cetera. I won't read all these, but there are lots of very good funding sources. The federal transportation bill is up for reauthorization in September, so my little pitch is if you want trails and you want better transportation, talk to your elected officials about supporting reauthorization of that in September. Pennsylvania passed a bill in a very bipartisan way with both Democrats and Republicans supporting it. It's a great example for the feds. So we're a leader in the country doing that, and so I encourage you, if you want to see more of this stuff, to let your elected officials know. There is a survey that's part of this plan, and that's still open. We've gotten about 450 responses. The results of that survey are in the appendix of the report, so if you're interested to see what your neighbors think about various things connected with trails and open space and parks, you can see their opinions there. So with that, I'll stop and try to address any questions or comments any of you have as best as I can. Yeah.
On your main map.
Yes, sir.
On your main map, I guess it's pretty far back.
Yep.
There are little hexagons around the edge. Are those opportunities to connect to neighboring townships?
Yes.
And at some points, it doesn't show on the highlighted version, but there are little blue circles. Are they nodes or something more significant?
Those are trailheads.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're intersections.
Intersections.
Excuse me, they're intersections. And the reason we've pointed those out is because in the cost estimate, they're discrete numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. In the back, you had a question?
Was there, the trails, I think this came up in the first meeting, these trails are focused mostly, it seems like, towards bicycles. But was there any thought into more hiking or walking trails to connect to other points? And for example, the Radnor Trail, you're talking about getting down through with bikes, and there is the one spot that would be for pedestrians, but I'd love to be able to walk from the Willows to the Radnor Trail. And
Yeah.
it seems like there's other ways of getting there through the Ardrossan acquisition and the development there, and other ways to get up. So I guess, was that taken into consideration?
Yes, there are actually walking trails connecting the Willows to Skunk Hollow that are part of the plan. I don't think we connect off-road to the Radnor Trail. It would be a bike connection. We do show connections to Ardrossan, and our understanding is the locations of those trails. I mean, you can see on the map here, in the central left portion, that's the Ardrossan track, and we have a generalized sort of conceptual layout of what those trails would be. We don't know the final disposition of those. So I guess the answer to your question is we are doing some of that. We're not able to connect with a hiking only trail at this point to the Radnor Trail. weren't able to come up with a way to do that. I mean, the logical way to try to do that would be to use some of your riparian areas to connect up really from the west to the northeast. But most of those lands are in private ownership, and I just don't think it's feasible to suggest that at this point. The other way to do that, of course, would be to encourage sidewalks, more sidewalks in the township. The map does show existing sidewalks. There may be some places those could be expanded, but we didn't see good opportunities for that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but certainly if you see, as we review the plan, if you see those opportunities, please suggest them.
Yeah, there are a couple private connections to the Radnor Trail. For example, for Parks Run Lane, there is I don't know what the road is off Parks Run Lane that comes with a T. At the end of it, there's a set of stairs or steps that come down, and people use that all the time.
Right.
I don't know about acquiring that, and I know that you're walking on a road, but at least it's some sort of connection there. More ways to connect, even with just people walking, seems like a good thing.
Sure, okay, thanks.
There had been talk about continuing the existing trail at Radnor Chester through Martha Brown's Woods to the high school. Is that still on the table?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's in the plan, right, Jeff? Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to tell everybody. That this is really the tip of the iceberg. Wait till you see the whole report. It has a great deal of information and a lot of connections in it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, really to review it, if you can set aside, if you're inclined to do so, it'd be great. It'd probably take you a couple hours to plow through it and give us some comments. Go ahead, Carolyn.
You've got 450 surveys. Were there any themes that came out of those that have, that clearly supported some of this, or?
Yes, we asked a question in terms of what's important to you, what's the most important to you, and we have a number of things to compare. One were trails and greenways, one was open space, one was parks, one was recreational opportunities, and I believe trails and greenways was a couple points higher than anything else. Now, having said that, this is a self-selecting survey that's on the web that mostly people who are interested in trails are going to go to it and take it. However, the interesting thing to us was that question was still as high and a little bit higher than open space and greenways. So, open space and parks. So it's a good indication, even though the survey is not statistically valid and wasn't meant to be, that it's ranked pretty high up there in people's opinions who took the survey. The other thing that came across too was that we asked a question about maintenance of existing parks, and most people felt that the existing parks are maintained pretty well.
I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but I was at the first one, and there was discussion about adding additional bicycle parking at the regional rail or the other train stations. I know that you've added some additional parking in Wayne for that first section, but is there still plans or to work with SEPTA or some of the other organizations to put additional parking at those connections? Yeah,
I don't think we've made that specific recommendation in the plan, and that's something probably we should add. SEPTA does allow, we do note in the plan when you're allowed to take bicycles on both buses and trains in terms of hours and how many you can put on a car, etc. So we can add that. If you have a chance, please send it to us, and we'll make a note of it tonight to put that in. We do note a number of mainly existing trailheads now that are used in that way around the township that would continue to function that way. I don't believe we suggested any new trailheads because we really didn't see the need for them. And remembering that this is meant to be primarily a community bike trail system, Most of the people who use this system will probably be local folks. There will be some people, once this regional trail goes north-south from Valley Forge through Radnor to Haverford down to 69th Street Station and beyond, it becomes a regional trail. But even when it's a regional trail, relatively small percentage of people will make those long trips. So we didn't see the need for lots of new trailheads per se, but we note them. And there are places like the high school and different places that are almost sort of used that way today.
Right, but I was just, one of the things that I saw in the plan was the additional bike parking that you've designated for West Wayne Avenue, I believe.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's there so that you've got that place where people coming off the trail that might be visiting Wayne have a place to park their bikes. Didn't know if there was any other spots within the whole plan that there might be a destination that people would go to that you might want to consider putting some bicycle parking areas, where you could lock them up.
Yeah, I don't think we've made other suggestions like that, but it's a good one. So we'll look at that as we revise this. Thanks. That might also be as over the years the system gets up and running, and merchants and destinations notice more people using those types of things. Those will be put in also by the private sector, hopefully. Also, if any of the, let's say at the business park and new buildings, perhaps, if any of these buildings want to be LEED certified, one of the ways they get points is very simple. They have bike racks, they have showers for employees. So hopefully, as this system gets up and running, some of those things will be furnished also by the private sector. Anything else? Go ahead.
Yes, you do.
In your stakeholder meetings, I was wondering if you had any interest in places like Cabrini and other colleges opening up to having some back ways for bicyclists and walkers onto their campus instead of just the automotive driveway?
Yeah, most of I should say that many of the institutions attended. Villanova, Cabrini was here, I believe, Valley Forge Military Academy, the school district was here. Yeah, so many of those stakeholders are at our focus group, and they seem very engaged and very interested. Also, in the survey, I should mention, one of the questions we asked is, do you now use some of the institutions for walking and strolling and really sort of passive open space use? And you'll see in the survey, a lot of folks already do. A high percentage do, which we sort of guessed, and that's why we asked the question. So the trails that we've shown on institutional lands typically skirt the perimeters of those lands for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of schools have become more security conscious. So even though they're open campuses generally, and anybody could walk on or even drive on, we just thought that keeping them on the perimeters was a more attainable goal and intrudes less in the campus. So your question, do we have any routes through those? That would be determined by each institution as the system comes up and running.
Right. What I was looking for was interest on their part in having more than one approach onto the campus to those peripheral loops.
They haven't voiced that yet, and we haven't suggested it. We think that just like the Radnor Trail took a lot of years to happen, and once it happened, a lot of those fears melted away, and everybody said, yeah, this is a pretty good thing. If the sections of the trail happen, let's just say along Lancaster Ave at Villanova, hopefully they would expand that on their own to incorporate more opportunities for use. So that's a thing that'll sort of evolve, and I think the first step is to get over the initial, having a public trail along a perimeter. But, I think, and you see a lot of institutions who have done just what you said. Well, if there are no other questions, we can adjourn and let you go home. And the Phillies playing tonight, we all go home and watch the Phillies lose. Are they off tonight? They're off, I guess, huh? Yeah. Oh, they are. That's right, they're in Washington. So please, thank you for coming. Please, if you can, take some time in a few days over the next couple of weeks. Take a look at the website. Please look at the report. Give us your comments because, again, just tonight some good comments came up. And then if you have any suggestions, feel free to contact us or the committee or the township. Our contact information is there. And get to the last slides here. So the next, it's not tentative anymore. We will be in front of the commissioners this month, June 23rd, at either 6:30 or 7, whenever that meeting starts on the 23rd. And then we're also going to go back to the commissioners on August 11th, where hopefully they will have reviewed the plan and give us their comments. Our next committee meeting is July 16th, where hopefully we'll have some of your comments and other comments, and also the committee will have comments. We'll talk about revisions to the plan, and then we're going to come back with our fourth and final public meeting on September 9th, where we will present revisions. And then there is also, and I took out the slide, unfortunately, there's one other meeting with the commissioners in September, October. You guys have it, but it's there's one other meeting. I can go back to the front here and tell you what it is, but there's one other meeting with the commissioners to hopefully where they will adopt the final plan or approve it, however they want to move with whatever changes we make between then and now. So that's it. Thanks. Thank you. September 22nd is the final commissioners meeting. So great. Thanks for your time, and thanks for all your help.